Okay, so we have tons of babies, at least 3 or 4 generations of just like baby fry everywhere. And I'm wanting to separate the babies, not just because, the adults might eat them, but more so that I can separate the males and the females because with the males, they can just, I guess, they can impregnate them once and they will be pregnant for, I think it's up to 6 batches. So they can be pregnant for a long time. And if I want to isolate, certain traits, I need to go ahead and separate them. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be taking a net and I'm just going to be netting out these little guys. There's so many of them that I'm sure I'll catch plenty. And then I'm going to move them down to this tank after I do a quick water change just to make sure everything's okay. Alright, so I got them moved over here. And I did feed a little bit and did a water change, which is why there's so many little particles floating around. They seem to be doing alright. Got some of the from the first batch, the larger ones, and then some of the newer ones in the back there. Wasn't able to get all of them, but once I noticed that they start becoming males or females, or maturing to becoming males or females, I'm going to throw the males in this one so they can be with the other males. Then pick the ones I like the best for breeding. Oh, that one looked like it had a purple fin. If I could focus. Maybe it's the lighting. And then the females will go in here. This is a 30, maybe it's a 29. Still have more babies in here swimming around. There's one back there. And I think I'll just try to get a few every day, and eventually I will get them all. They seem to like to hang out near this pot. Maybe it's safer over there for some reason. So looking at one of the 30 gallons here, I got some of this, these floating, I forget what type that is, but it's kind of like duckweed, but they have a little bit bigger leaves. But anyway, I'm trying to get rid of all of them, so I'm going to have to pick these out. So if you guys ever get duckweed, don't have floating plants. It makes it impossible to get them out. So I'm just going to pick them out, one by one, as many as I can, and just do this regularly because I've had a lot of duckweed that I've thrown away recently, and I don't want to get back to that. So the goal here in this tank is to plant all these floating plants in the substrate and move some of the other floating plants elsewhere. We'll spread the duckweed out a little bit, but I'll keep an eye on it. Here's all the duckweed I pulled out. Not that much. Happy so far, but I'm going to keep doing this at least once a month so they don't overrun, but they just kind of get stuck to your hands and you can transfer it to other tanks, so you need to be careful about that. So I want to go over real quick propagating Java ferns. It's very easy to do, but if you can see this one in the back, it's growing off the leaf and you can see roots right there. That one you can pretty much take and pluck and then attach it to a rock or piece of wood. And it's good to do this a lot so you can really spread out your plants. Gonna go ahead and pluck it. See, and then you have a new Java plant that's gonna create its own babies. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna glue the roots onto a piece of rock. Okay, so I've taken it out. What I like to do is dry the roots out a little bit first. Just dab it a little bit. You don't have a lot of time to keep it out of water, or else the leaves will die. I think about 2 minutes is the maximum I would do, maybe 3. So you get a rock. You'd normally like to wipe them off so there's no particulates. And then super glue gel. You only need a couple of dots of super glue gel, and you just glue the roots, not the ribosome. So I'm going to do that real quick. I can't really hold the camera and do this. So what I did was basically I held 2 fingers on the roots and just did a few dabs. This is probably overkill, but I don't like reattaching them if they become unattached. But basically, you'd only need like a couple of globs usually, and it takes, they said it takes about a minute for it to cure, but I usually like to wait a little longer because the roots were kind of wet. Alright, let's go ahead and toss it in. So I like to keep my thumb on it so maybe it keeps it from floating up as much when you put it in initially. Okay. We'll leave it there for now. But basically, you can see that it stays on there pretty well. I also threw some of the floating plants in this tank. This is a 75. I put everything away from the sponge filter. Well, mostly this plant away from the sponge filter so that it doesn't dislodge the plant that I just glued. Also, I added a light. This is a fluorescent one. I didn't want to do the LED because I was worried about it getting wet. I'm not sure how water resistant the LEDs are. Also got this 4-foot glass panel. That's what's supporting this fluorescent light. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this tank. This one's above Morris. Where is he? There he is. So, it'd be really nice if there was a planted tank here above the flower horn. I think I'd like that a lot. So I got mostly the ones with the most roots planted. I wanted to do those first because they'd be easier to keep down. Did not want to film it because it's very difficult, and I don't think I'm very good at it. Not an aquascaper. So basically, I took the roots, I kind of pushed them down, and then tried to bury them in the rocks. And hopefully, they'll start expanding and stay in the substrate. That's the plan, at least. There is a little bit of fertilizer on the left side, and then not so much on this side. So we'll see what happens. Be a fun little experiment. Also got the pogo stemmen planted, mostly. Tried to bury the roots there. We'll see how that one turns out. Not really that good at stem plants, but I'm trying to get better. I really like the idea of having like a traditional planted tank. I still got a few of the smaller ones floating until they get their root structure really developed. Then I'll start planting them again. And a few of them slipped over there. So looking at the fry tank, I'm noticing this subwasser tank is kind of taking over Java Fern. And that's not good for the long-term health of the Java Fern. So I'm going to pull that out and throw it in another tank. Also, in the male guppy tank, this Anubias is kind of overtaking this Java Fern back here. Doesn't look too bad on camera, but it looks worse in person. I'm gonna move that as well, just to make sure that I can get proper growth with all of my Java Ferns. So I'm gonna try to be careful when I do this. So the roots of the Java Fern are attaching to this this plant here, subwasser tank. Oh gosh. Didn't realize how much was in here. We'll throw it in there for now. Yeah, that's crazy. Okay. I think we'll leave it like that for now. Let's pull this one up, see how it's doing. Gotta move this light over a little bit. Okay. So, and you can see this one's attached to a lava rock. And honestly doesn't look too bad. I think I'm just gonna leave it in there. It's still getting some light, it's just not getting a lot. This one could probably move out because it's already detached. Float that in another tank until I'm ready to attach it to something. Let's see. Oh, and then I didn't plan for this, but I have like crazy Java Fern attached to this sponge filter. So I think that's a really good thing to have, and I probably want to do more things like this. Get some smaller ones back here. Go ahead and move those. I like how the Anubias has the new leaf coming in, the kind of lightish green one in the middle there. So that's always exciting. It'll do nothing for like months, and then it'll grow a new leaf like really, really fast. So it's really fun. Let's go back here. This tank just got set up. Plop everything in there. Don't want the ferns to be like stuck to this subwasser tank, so I'm trying to keep them separate. Yep, we'll just let that clump settle where it does. Still a lot more plants I want to put in here, but little by little we'll get there. So today I finally figured out the issue with the linear piston air pump that's up there that supplies this loop around the fish room. Basically what happened was I had these lines that didn't go into tanks, or they were open, and all of the pressure was escaping through those lines. So now we do have not all the tanks running, but most of them. So this tank wasn't running. These sponge filters are now running really well. These air stones aren't running in this one, which is right next to it. And then for some reason these aren't running, but they're very close to being running. So if I lift it just a little bit, you know, it's just a couple inches off from running these sponge filters. Oh, and then this guy is really interesting down here. This is this DIY kind of filter I was playing with. Just rocks in a water bottle. Basically, if I lift this up a little bit, it starts working, and you can make a filter like that. Haven't really played with it a whole lot, but it's an idea that I've been tinkering with, because that would save a lot of money on the sponge filters. Then we got these working in the 55s. I put the tubs up here because I don't have any 55s yet for up here, and I don't have any fish to put up there, so there's no reason to start putting fish in there, though I probably will soon. The matin filters are running like crazy. Same thing with the other one. So on the box of the air pump, it says it can run 20 outlets. So I put the minimum 20 outlets open so I can get the maximum pressure in the fish room that I can. So I'm gonna keep playing with it, see if I can get these two tanks running down here. Doesn't seem to work very well with air stones. So that air stone is connected to the system's not really running. So I might just, you know, have that plugged into the sponge filter in the back, so I can save a pump. There's the pump right there, so I won't have to use that one. Same with this one. And then the fry tank. So I can connect to this matin filter, and it should be able to filter the whole thing. But I'm not going to do that yet because it seems to create a lot of flow in the other tanks, and I don't want to mess with these little guys that are just barely learning to swim at their age. But I could probably connect to this one. We'll see how it goes. So the air is going to come out of the least resistant path, and that will be the shallower sponge filters. So like this one's very shallow. A lot of the air is going to go through this one first before it goes to the other tanks. And so what I can do about this, obviously I can lower or raise the height of this sponge filter, or I can kind of balance them because I can make adjustments to the air drop valves. So I'm able to shut them off each one or kind of meter them. And I think I'm just going to try to do that and balance the system. I'm still keeping it at the minimum of 20 air drops for now. But that will change as I start making changes to the fish room. So these tubs, they're going probably too strong. Probably have too much flow. So I'm going to turn these down, see if I can get these going again. And then same with this guy right here. The reason these aren't working is because this sponge is floating now and all the air is coming out, and that's the path of least resistance for the airflow. So if I lowered this one down, these sponges would get going again. So, yeah, and I'm also thinking about putting like a regular sponge filter here because this one's not, the suction cup is not sticking to the glass. So, we'll see if I can get it going today. So, great success. Everything's running. And even this air stone is going crazy. Got these guys running. Got this one running. That one running. That one running. I added 2 drops right there. One for the top, one for the bottom. 3 sponges in that one. This air stone's going crazy. I might turn it down a little bit to kind of limit the evaporation. But it's doing its thing. I mean, it's not getting the fine bubbles out, but I mean, it's doing something. So not sure if I want to change that or not, but it's getting the surface agitation I'm wanting. Because this little canister isn't, well, it's not getting any surface agitation. It's doing the filtration, but I need some kind of surface agitation on this tank for oxygen for the fish. These are going well. I got no sponges on Morris's tank because he kind of attacks it, and I just don't want to deal with that because it'll disconnect, and then I have to deal with that. I turned these down a lot because you could hear them upstairs. So that's good. These are going pretty hard. I might turn these down a little bit depending on what I put in there. Threw a sponge in this one. These are going like crazy, these matin filters. Yep. And I threw a sponge in this one. I really should replace this one with a 30. So we'll see. I gotta find one first at a good price. So I purchased 5 new of the like blue neon rainbows because I really like their shimmer. I already have 2 in this tank and they look pretty good. They're adult size, but the ones at this store are very, very little. And I wanted more of those. So I'm temperature acclimating. Then I'm gonna dump this bag of water in a net and just dump it in. I know you should be quarantining this, but I'm willing to take that risk today. Update on the 35-gallon tall. So I went to the store yesterday and I picked up some crenum. That's the little crinkly plant right here. Buried the roots, and then some, I think it's called a pontageton. I don't remember which one, but it has kind of a bulb and some roots. And so I tried to bury most of the roots there, and it's got these thick leaves. So it's a pretty interesting plant. Never kept pontageton before, but the crenum is very, very hardy plant. It's got a little bit of surface algae, which I think the few snails that are in here, there's one right there. That's not focusing, but there's one back there. They should take care of that. It's not really that big of a deal. I also got these lights on a timer, so they're only going to be on like 4 to 5 hours a day, and I'll just keep an eye on it. I also buried a root tab in between these 2 plants. Hopefully it's not a problem in the future, but the root tabs help fertilize the substrate. This is the root tab I was using. It's the aquarium co-op ones. And then I'm also going to be dosing Easy Green. They say to do 1 squirt per 10 gallons per week, but I kind of haven't been following that. I'm just kind of dosing when I dose. But yeah. And then I'm also noticing this water sprite in the back there. So this one that kind of is turning brown is those are the leaves that are dying off because they were grown above water and they have to convert to underwater leaves, if that makes sense. So this little starry leaf right there, that's the underwater leaves, and that's what the plant's supposed to look like when it's submerged. So all of these are gonna go brown eventually, and then the leaves will change. So I gotta try to get the rest of these planted at some point so I can speed this process up. So it's very interesting. The Java ferns on the rocks are doing pretty well. I'm happy with them so far. I also picked up some Congo tetra at the store. These are pretty small. They're going to look a lot better once they get older and start coloring up and growing their finnage. The females stay drab, but the males get very colorful. So I'm really excited. I've never had these before, and it's a fish that I've always wanted to keep, but just never got around to it. But the Congo tetra, they get a pretty good size. So I'm really excited to see how these turn out. I got about 5 of them. So I picked up 2 sheets of this polycarbonate. They're like roofing panels for greenhouses. And I was going to cut these to be used as the lids for the tanks. And this will help with maintaining temperature and lessening the evaporation, which could lead to humidity and other problems. But you can find these at Lowe's in the roofing section. So I'm going to take some measurements and then I'm going to cut them to fit the tanks. So on this tank I got it to fit perfectly where it just fits in the little divots. I tried to trace this one, but I almost got it. I just have to clean it up a little bit. I got this edge hanging off here, but yeah, it looks pretty good. And you can see that the airline tubing is able to come down through this polycarbonate panel. So I think I'm going to add an aquarium light on this, and it should work out fine. That was one of the other reasons I wanted to put these panels on, is I didn't want to get some of the fancy LED lights wet. I know they're water resistant to a certain point, but they're not fully waterproof, and I don't want to take that risk with those. Update on the 75 community. We have a little bit of algae on that back wall there. This could be lack of flow, too much light, or I feed too much, which I probably feed too much because I feed in the mornings and the afternoons a lot. And I always try to feed when I'm around the house and I'm not doing much, just a little bit at a time. So they do get a lot of food, and these plants are nowhere near big enough. So one thing I can do is I'm gonna move this air stone to this back wall so I can get more flow, because that's the only area that has it. It could also be this light being on too much, or this light being on too much. That one's on all the time, so I think I'm just gonna start turning it off more. I've also reduced on the timer the amount of light, or the light time, to by 2 hours. I think I'm down to 3 or 4. I'm also going to use this tool. Basically, it's a magnet. These two things come together just like that. And there's a soft side and a coarse side. Coarse side goes in the tank. It's like Velcro. And it'll rub the inside. So I'm going to do that. Usually, it's better to do this during the water change so you can remove those algae particles. But basically, it helps get it off the glass until it's just a temporary fix. Because you have to fix the problem, not, come up with a Band-Aid solution. Oh no! But you get the idea. Just back and forth until it all comes off. You can also use a razor for this. Alright, I got all of the algae off, at least all that I could see. And I got this air stone basically moved over so that we get more flow on this back wall. And that should help with the algae as well. So it's not just one thing, you gotta do multiple things. I mean, sometimes it is just one thing, but we'll try a couple different things, and if that doesn't work, I'll start looking at other options. Not gonna lie, I'm loving these greenhouse panels. They fit perfectly. You cut them to shape. I got 2 pieces on here, and they're in the divot, so they're like almost flush. They got holes, gaps, so you can run air line, but you can just lay it on top like that. Got this light. It's a lot better. Gonna have plants in here at some point. I'm not gonna have it on a lot because this is an algae making machine. If you're not careful, there's plenty of different colors spectrum on this light, and it just sits on here and it stays dry, and we limit evaporation. Gonna try out some brine shrimp cubes today. And just kind of watch the feeding frenzy. This is about what they look like. Oh, this is a lot of food. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to pull this out because I don't think they're gonna eat all that, and I'll throw it in one of the, well, I'll distribute it amongst other tanks. But yeah, it comes apart really quickly, and it's just like, I don't think I have enough fish for that. They do seem to like it a lot though, so that's good. All right. So one thing I wanted to touch on real quick, this is probably too much surface agitation because this will evaporate like 3 inches in a week, which is, it's just crazy. So what I did is I put a top on it. I got 2 of those big aqua cleaners back there. That probably doesn't help, but it's mostly this air stone. So what I'll do is I'll probably try to turn that down. But all the tanks now have lights and lids, so that'll help with evaporation, and then I can look at them. When I go out of town, I'm gonna turn these lights off because there's no need to have them on. And like I said, these fish, they're okay. They just have swim bladder issues. They eat, but you know, that's just, it is what it is. Morris doesn't have a light, but he's got tops, and I got 2 aqua clears on his tank. It's pretty good for a flower horn. This one, not much changing. 75 down there, 30s with lights, 20 with light, 10 right there, 75. I got this tote thing going on this rack, but basically same deal, except I didn't cut this one to size, this panel. I just threw the whole thing on top of it till I can figure out what I want to do with this area. Same for this one. This one's going to be a planted tank at some point. And then this one I got a little creative, but you know, it works. And these have lights. And then there's this other light that I just got that I have been using on this one. Gonna start putting plants in this at some point, but it's one of these lights where it clips on in the back and you can adjust it. So everything's on a timer, and that's gonna help with algae. So I'm really liking the look of this clean background tank. It really accentuates the Ranchu. So I bought this this tank like this with the black background. But yeah, oh, he's saying hi to his friends. Yeah, I need to get a friend with this one. I got him from East Coast Ranchu, and I'm hoping to breed this one soon. It is a beautiful fish.